Hello and welcome to Springboard, your virtual university. My name is Albert Okran, welcoming you on behalf of the virtual academic board chaired by Comfort. This is your most inspirational show and the point where the greatest minds converge. Springboard is brought to you by the Springboard Roadshow Foundation and proudly sponsored by MTN Pulse, the enterprise group, UMB Bank with media partnership with the multimedia group and the graphic communications group. For the past number of weeks, we've been looking at my top 10, this very popular series capturing the foremost principles in the lives of mentors from various fields. We've had the privilege of hanging out with Moses K. Baden, Professor Odrigajipo, Reverend Daniel Ubamitete, Dr. Opokuwari Ampuma, Ebo White, Uncle Ebo White, Bishop Patricia Sapo, Professor Florence Dolphine, and Adiki Ayitivi, and of course, Professor Ernest Ayiti, who came on last week. Very exciting edition. Today we climbed a notch higher and crossed over all the way to a Chrome here in the gardens with somebody that is an absolute legend, Professor of Ethnomusicology, the former president of Musica, chairman of COSGA, and the one and only Ghana's Agya Nimo. Agya Nimo, good to see you.
Thank you.
I don't know, but it's just such a blessing to be able to sit with you today to distill the biggest principles of your life. Thank you for making time to speak to the young people of Ghana. Let's start with the origin of your name. I like the name, Agya Nimo. What is the origin of the name?
In fact, I was born and my daddy gave me the name Kwabenabua Bonsem. I was baptized as a Methodist with the name Daniel Amponsa. When I went on stage, I took the name Ko Nimo. Ko Friday male born. Nimo, somebody who takes blame for something he has not done.
Wow.
So I have three names. Interestingly, Ghanaians are giving me Agya, and I'm thankful to Ghanaians for that.
So Agya is a word depicting honor, a father.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So you must be a father of music because everybody knows you for your music. Let's start with your early days. I'm just curious about when you actually got to discover your talent in music. How was growing up like?
I think I started my music the very day I was born because I cried. I sang my first melody. I was born in a village, Fonse, at Chumakwa. My father was a trumpeter, and my mother was a singer in the Methodist Square. At dawn, the old women would do a nyonkro, which according to Mami Ofuabasa means songs for nation building, around dawn.
Every day?
Usually the weekends. Then I was sitting with the old women. And nyonkro means menyina. The old women will gather around and they will be singing and clapping. They will be singing in turns. They'll be calling names of their relatives who have led the good life to be called ancestors. And so there's a proverb which says, "So nu oba wonyon kromwa udini mpem." And my duty at that time.
Let me explore the meaning of that. Do I get a sense that if you live a good life and feature in those kinds of songs, your name never passes on?
Yeah. You see, let's go to the very beginning of society communities. Almost always there is a leader. who might be hunter, who might lead expansionist campaigns in expanding. So these are called men of valor, men who qualify to be called ancestors. So in the singing, when it comes to your turn, you call the names of your relatives.
The good ones.
So if your sibling is in that group, your name will never be missing. We know about one
Right, I understand. So you used to sit with the old women and sing, participate in that kind of music?
At that time, I wasn't singing, but I was just there listening to them. And my duty was to go to Kumasi, because the people donated money at that time to buy bags of salt and chili to the village. And this will be distributed for every woman in the village. And an old woman by name Nana Abenechijina was a leader. And in fact, she taught me this song. Mitro kakami, minero kakami. Kakami ampa ukua mwasi anansi. Odon sosorekusi akuya fondo ufuo. Ukuya. Sepeni bi oho. Na wo fase. Na odi dwuma bi a. Eye se oboa no, enka se obewu no afare chade. Empenifo se woti wo fa akira, wonso ti wachi.
And it's a song.
Yeah.
You want to sing it? Okay, so if you just joined us, this is the legendary Nimo just opening up about his life to us, and he's going to give you a song that he just spoke about.
Mitro kakamio, minero kakamio. Kakamio ampoku amwasi anansio. Mitro kakamio, minero kakamio. Kakami ampoku amwasi ananzio. Odom sesire kusi anansi mudom fwe. Anansi mudom fwe anansi. Okuya ai. Anansi mudom fwe anansi.
Wow.
So I recorded this song.
What year was that?
1982. And nipa o mpedwuma bi adie no o se oni asase oni ha fo so o se na asase nye se ko anye yi abe wo ho aba anye yi abronka wo ho banchi wo ho banchi ne deje bode tata ma aduane dɔɔso.
So you just described a principle that I read yesterday from a writer called Jim Rohn, who says, if you really determine to do something, you can do it.
Yes.
And if you don't want to do it, you can find an excuse. I get the impression from what you just said that if you really want to work, you can farm. Yeah. And if even palm nut doesn't work, cocoa will work. Yeah. If cocoa doesn't work, cassava would work. So stop giving excuses and get to work. Will that be one of the core principles of your life?
I think so. My uncle, the late George Agya, of blessed memory, Sekwabra, order is the first law in heaven. Without discipline, there's no life. And the late Professor W.N. Lane, the first dean of the medical school, Kumasi, told me, if you decide to do anything, do it well. If you write I, it is one with a dot. And I remember when I was in Imperial College London doing chemistry, a chemistry PhD student presented his PhD dissertation to my professor, Barra. And he would usually, Daniel, just go through the dissertations and tell me something. And what I would do to open the last, turn to the last page. And I found something interesting. He had not finished the thesis because there was no full stop.
Wow.
So I told Professor. I remember telling Professor Nketia this story, and he told his daughter, Professor of History, Shredie Kwakano. Shredie Kwakano. Don't take anything for granted. You'll be taken for granted. Discipline is the thing.
Wow. So how did you get to be educated in music? Because I realized that you probably had a mentoring experience sitting with the ladies as they sang over the weekends about heroes who had lived a good life. How did your own music career begin? Either in education, in music, or professional expression of music.
Thank you. My first music teacher was a fancy man called Mr. D.K. Sam of blessed memory. Was a fancy. Because I lived at the mission house for some time. And when I was about 5 or 6, he started teaching me music using small wood tutor. One weekend, Mr. Sam fell ill. So he called me to rehearse hymns, songs for church service on Sunday. By the grace of God, I was able to play through. And after that, he made sure that I played every Sunday.
What instrument did you play then?
The organ.
So you started with the organ and you started in church?
I started with the organ in the church.
Right.
And in 1942, my sister, Ekuofoshia, Mera Mponza, Mama, married Nana Opoku, the second brother, and Nana Lawrence Ose Kwame Bonshu. So in 1942, we moved to Menchia. I attended the Kumasi Presbyterian School at Edun. And he, in wisdom, bought me an organ. So on Sundays, when my friends were pounding fufu, I would be playing organ to entertain his friends.
As a reward for buying me the organ.
And you know, the Presbyterian School, we had this Swiss and German minister helping us to play real music. Then in Adesado, I heard the late Sechi was my piano teacher. So I just continued. Professor W.N. Lane, Professor Mawiro Poku, Professor of Dance and Choreography, Legon, told me, if you want to play the guitar, then start with classical guitar. But in 1951, something interesting happened in Adesado College. I had two students, Robert Osu, GBC broadcaster, and Dr. Harry Opoku of blessed memory, We were rivals, healthy rivals. So anything Harry did, I felt I could do better. So one morning, I was going to the washroom, and I heard Harry playing. Harry never guitar.
He provoked you.
And no, I don't know. And I'm that's what it way.
So you played classical music?
I play classical music.
As in Beethoven, Mozart?
Oh, listen to something like this.
Wow.
This is by Aguado. You see, and a little bit of jazz, you know. Things like this.
But you're describing a provocation that happened 70 years ago, 1951.
Yes.
And you still are playing so well.
Well, I think you have asked a very difficult question. Having worked in biochemistry for over 40 years, I know one important thing in life: water therapy.
Tell me about it.
You know, we are about 65% water. So I drink plenty of water. Number two, if somebody offends me at 9 o'clock, I'll forgive him at 9:05. Why should I keep some malice in my head when I can use my mind to do something productive?
So
I respect
forgiveness.
Yes, forgiveness.
And you think forgiveness is linked to longevity?
I would think so.
Tell me why.
You see, it's good and evil. So be your bonia. Yeah, the look at King David. King David of all people organized for the death of Uriah to be sent to the hottest part of the battlefield because he wanted his wife. King David one sokra ma yehu hwede nyankopon ye onu no hu wode bone ne che ade na yonko ye mbone a me de shemitim. If you say the human mind must be used not for evil.
So you're saying that if God was gracious enough to forgive David, a man who literally committed both adultery and murder, because he repented, why would we human beings hold offense against one another?
The philosophy.
Okay, so let me take you back, for the benefit of those who are tracking your life story, back to 1951 and to Harry, who played the chords, strummed those chords in jazz or in classical music at Adisado College. And by the way, I went to France, so you mentioned Adisado. It's a trouble spot, but and you wore black and white too. But I'll forgive you.
I fancy it was a premier.
You know, it's an age-old battle. Yeah. For the benefit of our listeners and viewers, this is an age-old battle, so I'm sure you understand. Yeah. But let's explore the impact of Harry's provocation. Did you train harder? Did you begin to explore your own talent? Did you begin to discover that you had something you hadn't touched yet?
You see, Oscar Peterson, the black Canadian pianist, says this about music and practice. If I don't practice a day, I know it. If I don't practice for 2 days, the audience knows it. If I don't practice for 3 days, the whole world knows it. Practice. André Segovia, the Spanish classical virtuoso, at 90 years old, was practicing 6 hours a day, 8 to 12. You break for coffee, then 2 to 4.
8 to 12.
Practicing.
2 to 4.
Practicing.
A nice formula.
Oh. So what I do, I've never been a professional, so when I travel out, I have one guitar on my bed, but here I have one guitar here, 2 there. If I wake up at about 1 a.m. and I can't sleep, I pick my guitar. If there's a tune I want, I'll just scrap it or record it.
Do you still compose?
Yes, I do.
At this age?
Yes. For example, ironies. Adwene dansium enso sukoma kuno. Adwene o. Wadansium no sukoma kuno amrawu.
Adwene is mudfish, correct?
Fish.
Okay. So you're saying that the mudfish is in the water and yet it's dying of thirst.
Yeah.
What is the thought behind
this is irony in literature.
Right.
Asem saying asem. Ensemfo kuma somroje. Kuma somroje.
Okay.
Akokuno no wodani asomroje. Asamu ukuma somroje na sadie ni mo afo ni hwa akokuno nim.
Wow.
Futukoko ni yiri no dio sonson. So
what do you use these ironies for?
For example, I wrote a song. Nadensua.
Another one.
Some dinipani above Katremami Kasan St. Paul.
Right. If I speak the tongues of men.
You know what I said? Odot is intention. Look at what I said. Odot is measles. If your son contracts measles, you have to be very careful. I want to know. So why is she? You see, for goes down here. Maybe you crow. We hear a tree more than kakra. We hear crow kakra would it? And say she and I say vinegar. And I'm quite a home. Now, dear Fomuna, when you are about to wash over. A rubber man told you what is him. Who turn a weaver tongue at all and young for so. No, be the man can see what on the dime. Termites, when you Sophie, when you pickaxe, is will see about sign. When you watch on no. Or branches are ready. I should end up on and yet the pet. A bit is in you, a be a triatum. So I die bar. Namno Benu, Ubia to the Casa because Ubia's not some day. When 2 elephants have a brawl in the forest, it's the vegetation that every. So soon you look at more. How about the assassin say? If you better, our rear be giant and not from and yet the more from money. And I'm full from money. I'm still composing.
Let me take you to, and I'm going to ask you to play one of your compositions very shortly, but let me take you to your academic journey.
Yeah.
So you went to Adisadal College?
Yes.
And then from there?
I went to Adisadal College, 49, 52. 53, I went home to my village to teach. I was a pupil teacher. My salary was £3, 1 shilling and 8 pence. But I was able to raise a library. Then I went to Kolebu Medical Research Institute, where Professor Nogochi established Medical Research Institute. I was trained for about a year or two. We graduated. I was posted to Kumasi to work under Professor Lane. He was a friend to Professor Kufuor. So he said, Lane, I want Nimo as my technician. So I resigned to go to Kwame Nkrumah University in 1960, 31st October. 1st November 1960, I was working at Tech. Then I met Professor Mamiro Poku. At that time, I was using steel string guitar. I said, no. So he went to Italy and he bought me a classic guitar with nylon strings.
What's the difference between the steel strings and the nylon strings?
You see, steel will make marks here.
On your fingers.
I played for over 60 years. There's nothing there. Then you can practice for many, many hours. So, what's up,
Is that your music?
I play Babon Senkuda.
Yes.
No, I just came for me to chip it in.
So play it. I was just enjoying it. I was just about to come out. Oh, Prof, don't do this to us. Does it do something to you when you play music?
Yes. You see, when I was taking music lessons in London, they did certain tests. They would put electrodes here, feed a computer, oscilloscope, and then whilst playing, they'll be observing the waves. As a matter go, electrical waves are air course over team, because strings are here. We are then we need Marco no Yanyum. And then we course over team. Music, it feeds the soul. And the soul is important. The soul is what makes Okrano. Nasebi Abuawo Ubo Macau. Any music has some days a kind of idea saying. A mum, your music or through the stomach. Rhythm, no, you it is a bobo, Kotokoni has. No, I said, Cha-cha-mpabwa. No, say, Kofi Ashego, what to maybe? Number one, Korako Park. So, rhythm rules the world.
Right. So, do you think we should explore a bit more the idea of music therapy?
I think so. About 6 years ago, a German mathematician called Henrik Bettermann drove from Germany through Burkina Faso in his Land Rover, came to me. Said, I want to Nimo. That's why I am Nimo. I said, what's your mission? So, brief here. And the first thing I did, which interested his wife, was that I introduced him to my wife. That's
the first thing.
It's your better half. Adam here was in Yankopon. No chile I don't know about Baku. Oh, yeah, Eve. But not Eve and Eva. Baku. Said your music, see, and lift you. Say, Mutie, Alleluia Kurosa. Esse, handle say open composition as a surobue. So the music I am mean to me.
Let me go for a little break. When I come back, I'm going to find out what it has done to you. So if you just joined us, this is Springboard of Virtual University. I get the absolute privilege of exploring the life, the lessons, the philosophy, the experience of Agya Nimo. If you have been trying to capture the lessons of his life so far, I'll tell you the ones I have been able to capture. He says, whatever happens, determined to work. Don't give excuses. If cocoa doesn't work, palm nut will work. If palm nut doesn't work, cassava will work. Number 2, order is the first law in heaven. Without discipline, there is no life. Number 3, if you decide to do anything, do it well. And don't take anything for granted, or life will take you for granted. Number 4, it's about water therapy. He says, with over 40 years experience in biochemistry, he can tell you authoritatively that drink a lot of water. That's principle number 4 from Agya Nimo. Number 5 is about practice. And I like the quotes that you give from Oscar Peterson about if you don't practice for 3 days.
If I don't practice a day, I know it. If I don't practice for 2 days, the audience knows it. If I don't practice for 3 days, the whole world knows it.
It is one of my biggest takeouts from this conversation. And the 6th one is the combination of toughness and love when you are mentoring somebody.
Yes.
You said if your child has measles, it takes a combination of different treatments,
yes,
some of which are tough and some of which demonstrate love. And you need both to be able to help somebody. I'll go for this break. When I come back, I'm going to wrap up on this first part, and then we'll begin to explore the lessons on the journey for Agya Nimo. Please don't worry.
Don't be left out. Download the Pulse app from the App Store or Play Store to mash up all day, every day. You can also enjoy more mashup. Just buy the new Mega Bundle and get 3 gigabytes data, extra 400 megabytes for your social apps, and free MTN to MTN calls every Monday. So go ahead, feel the Pulse on MTN Pulse. Just be. We're good together. Everywhere you go.
There once was a man who had it all. He had skill, he had charisma. He was loved by all, but above all, he knew the importance of helping others, lifting others up. He knew the importance of giving other people an advantage so that they too would use that advantage to help others. All you need is that advantage that sets you apart from the rest. And when you discover that advantage, life's challenges don't seem so daunting anymore. That's where we come in. Enterprise, your advantage.
UMB was established in 1972 as the premier bank for the corporate and private sector in Ghana. From our very beginning, as the only Ghanaian bank serving all categories of businesses, we set a standard for excellence and innovation. Over the past 45 years, we've built a financially healthy and strong bank, demonstrated our commitment to our customers and to growing businesses, and exhibited originality and innovation at every turn. At UMB, our focus is built around people, service, products, and technology. These are the key to our present success and our future triumphs. At UMB, we're poised to make a difference not only with our customers, but also in the banking industry. We invite you to share in our future. Our future starts now with you.
Welcome back to my top 10 today, the special edition featuring the man christened Kwabena Boamponsem, baptized as Daniel Amponsa in the Methodist Church, and ultimately known professionally and all over the world as Agya Nimo, a legend of our time. he's been sharing his life, and I've taken the liberty of gleaning my own principles from his life, and I'm just collating them as we go. But we'll come to his top 10 in part 2 of this very exciting interview. Let me talk about Nimo, about your work as an academician. Your biography and your profile indicates that you became, or in 1998, you were employed as a professor of ethnomusicology at the University of Washington in Seattle in the USA. And then later for 2 years before taking the same position in the University of Michigan. Tell us about your work in academia, especially on the international front.
First, my training. It was basically in science. But drumming, dancing, music was something like my hobby. But professors Kwabran Ketia and Mayuro Poku and Professor Kwapong took interest in my work. So every year they would invite me to Legon to perform. In fact, I had my group in 1953. And in 1957, when Dr. Nkrumah declared independence, I was performing at the post office where we had the cenotaph. So I picked all these up, reading. So when I retired in 1998, Professor Ellis, the Vice Chancellor then, was a biochemist. So in a humble way, he passed through our hands. He asked me, Ko, you are retiring. What are you going to do? He felt that my life should move on. So I told the Prof, I prayed over it. A week after that, I had a letter from North Carolina. And Anna Kosiajiman, the then Kumasi Mayor, asked me that I should prepare to go to North Charlotte City. Hey. So I went with Apigi, Professor Nkrumah, Dr. Grover. Whilst there, Andrew K., who later on wrote my biography, called Nimo and his circle, a Ghanaian musician in ethnomusicological perspective. That was his PhD dissertation, Columbia University. He wrote to me that, there's a job in Washington, Seattle, and I want to know whether you'll be interested in it. I said, to do what? Said, to teach your palm wine guitar and then music and dance, especially chord music and dance. And my policy, when I get an email, I reply it in the next 5 minutes. So they wrote to me. And so I left in 1998 to Seattle, Washington. I taught for a year. And I knew my contract was coming to an end. But the director of music said, Ko, I want to make sure that you stay for another year. Professor Robin Macau, professor of piano. Now, he did something interesting too. Between June 15 and July, they ran special courses for managers. So they helped me to get some money. I taught from the 15th of June to 16th of July. At that time, she had arranged for me to go to Ann Arbor, Michigan. So on the 17th of July, I was employed in Ann Arbor to teach my type of music and my court music and dance. That was another year. Professor Ampere is now in Colorado. It was interesting because I taught them Adwa, Sichi, Imprinting, Phantom from Seprewa, the African harp lute, and then my type of guitar.
You call it palm wine guitar.
Uh-huh.
I hear the term being used over and over again. What is palm wine
Yeah.
guitar?
Palm wine is a local drink from the palm oil tree.
Yes.
And there were three Fantes, Kwame Esa, Jacob Sam, Aquabani, and Eko Kanta. They formed the Kumasi Trio. In 1928, they were invited to Britain and recorded 24 tracks. 2 of the tracks were about Yam Ponsa. Yam Ponsa was a beautiful woman who married a cocoa broker in Achimepega. She taught ballroom dancing. And anytime Sam and others went to Apega, she would treat them with all Ghanaian decency and Ghanaian hospitality. Sam fell in love spiritually with this great woman. But as a poor guy, he couldn't express it. So when they were in London, he recorded Yam Ponsa, Jawar, you know. The song became a hit. Now, according to Professor Atana Mensah, also professor of ethnomusicology, a crewman taught Sam how to play. And for palm wine, you use only the thumb and the first finger. Palm wine, no. Now, when I was in Menchia, after my Saturday job, I would walk down to Kegetia, where they had this 78 shellac gramophone, his master's voice. He was selling gramophone records. I would listen to these great musicians, Sam Kwame, Kankam, Apiani, Apiajekum, Koyobio, Mreku, Kwabra Mensah, and what have you. These were all great musicians. And being a young boy, my mind was malleable, so I was learning, imbibing everything. So that was the thing. So this is what I taught in Seattle and yeah.
Let's go to your awards. I know you were president of the Musica, and then also the former chairperson of COSGA, the Copyright Society of Ghana.
Yeah.
And you also were recognized at various national music awards and so on. Tell me a bit about these awards and what they did to your person and your music.
An award, in simple terms, is a recognition of your contribution to your community. And President Rawlings gave me an award of Civil Division. President Kufuor gave me Member of Voter Award. Then the Santiman Award. But I think the one important was a Living Human Treasure Award. That was from the UNESCO. And Lady Antibeke Tando from Kontase, through Professor Champong, they did the interview. And I flew to Germany once, and on my ticket was Human Living Treasure Awardee.
Wow.
I didn't know. So when they call the first class, the military, the disabled, they go Daniel Lamponsa, Human Living Treasure Awardee. I was just walking.
How did you feel?
Oh, I'm in my power. Then I was also given the Kwame Nkrumah African Genius Award. That was also very, very interesting. The first time I met Professor Kwame Jeche.
He taught me philosophy.
I met this great man. And when I had to read a tribute for the late Rosalite, I thank the audience for arranging for me to meet Professor Kwame Gyekye.
What do you like about him?
Oh my goodness. African philosophical thought. Now, one interesting. Captain Rattray wrote a book, Ashanti Proverbs, and the title was The Primitive Ethics of a Savage People. Me am intibro for, but na me de primitive name savage, you know. But the way Professor Kwame Gyekye analyzed, is a British anthropologist, okay, the way he analyzed, look at our Proverbs. Yen philosophy. As I said today, nyame penny. So he gave me a hug. Say, go. You introduced me his daughter. In fact, I'm trying to collect all his books. And the way he analyzes, then Professor Abraham, then you will, Abraham will, they were in the college. They were my seniors. I love him.
Let me find out about your fears. What is your biggest fear in life?
My fear? Oh. Let me quote Goethe. Death is a commingling of time with eternity. And the death of a good person, eternity is seen looking through time. Was Socrates one. I think my greatest fear is fear. For death, means so. Because it's a common denominator. It should happen. You know, when Socrates was charged with changing the minds of the youth, you know better than I do. Plato and others were planning to take him away that night. But Socrates said, no, I will take the hemlock. A principled, wise old man. And I have a song about Socrates. He had a wife called Xantippe, who was reasonably very quarrelsome woman. And he was hugging, nagging all the time. So Socrates would leave home to the marketplace, quiz people. One day they had a row. We are told Xantippe poured a bowl of water on Socrates. And the old wise man sat down. You know what he said? My wife Xantippe, after all this thunder, I'm not surprised to see a drop of rain. So what he did is I'm trying to. But the interesting thing was this. Because of the nagging, we drove him out of home. He converted that liability into an imperishable asset. Philosophy was born.
Will that be one of the principles of your life, to convert your liabilities into assets?
Yes.
Explain it for the benefit of our audience.
My uncle Agya, or that the first, told me this. If you have a row with your wife, put your two hands in your pockets, get out of the house, come back in the evening. Now, ezibana na oye na orezi. It's kind of fancy. Toko ano yira kono e fa chop money ho. Mama chop money. Ese say bia ni wudi emfa convert that liability.
So, and I link that back to your point about forgiveness.
Yeah.
That in times of strife, just move on and look beyond the challenges.
Yes.
It's a beautiful time of learning and listening to you. And before we sign off, I'm going to ask you to play the song you mentioned about Socrates. But before you sign off, what gives you the most joy?
Pardon?
What gives you the most fulfillment and joy?
I think it's settled. It's divine. just a simple story. On 14 September 2014, I was put in hospital at 10. And one night, around about 12 midnight, I had a visitor. I saw me call me Nyamitias. I woke up. I told my wife I had somebody, a visitor. I said, "Come, you are imagining." So, I'm not a small boy. I'm imagining. Now I will see Gumi. Now so I can say, "Onyame, you bofo." Enkwen wo dey afem me, wan fa nche me. Say edu say wo dey bekwa, me ntumi ni yaki. But me srew say, "Bra bobo wi ase niam ma nyanyana, ma me yi mani pa nsa na mewu."
Oh, this is beautiful.
This was my.
Can I attempt to transcribe it for the benefit of our audience? So Nimo describes a time when he was sick in hospital, and he says he got a visitor that he believes was divine, and that visitor assured him not to despair because God is alive. And he said thank you to God and assured God that life itself that he has received is a gift, and at any time he can take it away. But before he takes it away, he should allow him to give everything that is in him as a gift to humanity. This has been Springboard Virtual University, just listening to, interacting with, and benefiting from the life, the wisdom, and the experiences of Agya Nimo. I want to say a big thank you to you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time and thank you for the lessons of your life. And for you out there, I want to say a big thank you to you for joining us in this discussion, this very blessed time of instruction and learning right here in the gardens in Kumasi. A big thank you to MTN Pulse, our sponsors, UMB Bank, the Enterprise Group, the Multimedia Group, and the Graphic Communications Group. Next, we will bring you part 2 of this discussion with Agya Nimo, finding out his top 10. But let me tell you my top 10 from this conversation with him. And it's very simple. Number 1, whatever happens, determined to work and don't give excuse. Number 2, order is the first law in heaven. Number 3, if you decide to do anything, do it very, very well. Number 4, drink a lot of water therapy. He says after 40 years experience in biochemistry, we are 65% water, so drink a lot of water. Number 5, he says if you don't practice for a day, you will know.
If you don't practice for 2 days, the audience.
For 2 days, the audience will know.
3 days, the whole world.
3 days, the whole world will know. So the 5th one is practice. Number 6 is that mentoring is a combination of tough and love. Toughness and love. Number 7, the termite has no shovel and no implements and yet builds mansions with lanes in between. Number 8, when I get an email, I reply in 5 minutes. And that's for you, those in the corporate world. Number 9, my biggest fear is not death, but fear itself. And number 10, convert your liabilities into assets. Join us next week as Agya Nimo gives us his top 10, not my top 10 from the discussion with him, his top 10. So we come away again. My name is Albert Okran saying, God bless you, and God bless you.